I'm glad that you're giving us the right answer, but unfortunately, your actions kind of tell a different story. You fired its decorated veteran FBI agents who have served their country proudly under Republican and both Democratic presidents, and you scrapped the tools that they developed to fight domestic terrorism. Mr. Patel, and it isn't just the domestic terrorism operations section. Under your watch, agents are fully diverting their attention to these anti-immigrant and city takeover operations. You pulled more than 120 FBI agents from their normal duties to operate sobriety checks.
That's simply not true. If we were not able to do two things at one time, how would we be
Patel,
seizing record amounts of fentanyl?
23,000
23,000 violent felons have been arrested.
Time belongs to the gentlelady.
More than twice as many as last year.
You have sent FBI agents to conduct traffic stops and round up hardworking immigrants who pose no danger to public safety. People even President Trump referred to as good, long-time workers.
If we're failing, how are we arresting 23,000 violent felons? Twice as many as this time last year. Are we failing? Because if we're failing, how are we seizing 1,500 kilograms of meth, 25% increase from last year? Are we failing? Because we captured 4 top 10 FBI most wanted from around the world in 7 months. That's more than the entirety of the last administration. Are we failing? Because we put 1,500 child predators in prison. Are we failing? Because we dismantled 300 human trafficking networks. Which is it? You don't like me, that's fine.
The FBI's Domestic Terrorism Operations Section, the unit that stopped a man stockpiling weapons to attack churches and schools in Florida and seized bombs made by an ISIS sympathizer in New Orleans, was gutted under Kash Patel's watch. Decorated veteran agents fired. The National Domestic Terrorism Incident Database scrapped, all while the country experienced one of the worst waves of politically motivated violence in recent history. At the same time, 120 FBI agents pulled from their normal duties to conduct traffic stops and sobriety checks. Child exploitation agents diverted to immigration enforcement. Unmarked FBI vehicles exposed. The tools that let agents fight violent gangs and foreign intelligence services quietly compromised. Patel's response: are we failing? Then how are we arresting 23,000 violent felons? If we're failing, how are we seizing 1,500 kilograms of meth? And then the line that ended the hearing: don't you dare disparage the men and women of the FBI. They are kicking ass for America. Same room, same agency, two completely different versions of what's happening inside it. Let's go through every second of this exchange, and subscribe now because this series documents both sides of every hearing, not just the one that fits the headline.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for coming in today, Mr. Patel. In the past few months, the country has experienced a string of horrific, high-profile attacks that have been motivated by racial hatred or political ideology. Shooter attacked the CDC headquarters, firing hundreds of rounds and killing a police officer. An arsonist set fire to the Pennsylvania governor, Josh Shapiro's residence, with the governor and his family actually inside. Minnesota House Speaker Melissa Hortman and her husband were assassinated earlier this year. Clark and Charlie Kirk was murdered last week. Bomb threats have been made against HBCUs and the DNC, and just the list goes on and on. I only have just a few minutes today, so I don't want to take a lot of time to go into all the countless and devastating violent crimes and incidents that have happened at our schools or on our streets and in our communities that have just been happening all year long. Mr. Patel, just yes or no, is this type of political violence ever acceptable in your eyes?
No.
I'm glad that we agree that these heinous acts designed to instill fear and division in our nation are never, ever acceptable. Yet each of these incidents has recently taken place under your watch. The FBI's website states that protecting the United States from terrorist acts is the FBI's #1 priority, including from domestic terrorists. Is this still your #1 priority?
Domestic terrorism?
Preventing domestic terrorism.
Our #1 priorities are protecting the homeland and international terrorism and crushing violent crime, and domestic terrorism sort of interlays between both of those.
The opening catalog is the most complete list of documented political violence incidents assembled in one opening statement across this entire series, and McBath uses it as the baseline for everything that follows. The yes or no on political violence acceptability gets a clean no. That's not the point of the question. The point is what follows. Every single incident on that list happened under Patel's directorship. The person who just said political violence is never acceptable is running the institution responsible for preventing it, and the incidents didn't stop. Then the domestic terrorism priority question exposes something subtle but significant. The FBI's own website says protecting against terrorist acts is the #1 priority. Patel's answer restructures that hierarchy. International terrorism and violent crime at the top, domestic terrorism interlaying between them. Whether that represents a genuine operational prioritization shift or just a different verbal framing of the same policy is the question McBath immediately tests against documented actions. What she produces next is the most specific operational evidence presented in any House hearing in this series.
And I'm glad that you're giving us the right answer, but unfortunately, your actions kind of tell a different story. Earlier this year, you granted the ranks of the FBI's Domestic Terrorism Operations Section. This is the section of the FBI that is most directly responsible for addressing political violence in our country by preventing attacks from occurring and effectively responding to them if they do. The agents in this section are the ones who stopped an individual stockpiling weapons, who planned to attack schools and churches in Florida and seized bombs made by an ISIS sympathizer in New Orleans. And instead of ensuring that this section has all the resources that it needs at a time when its mission is critical, you fired its decorated veteran FBI agents who have served their country proudly under Republican and both Democratic presidents, and you scrapped the tools that they developed to fight domestic terrorism, including the National Domestic Terrorism Incident Database.
I mean, most of that is just not true. We have 1,700 current DT managed programs. We're up 300% in the amount of cases we brought against nihilistic, violent extremists, including 764, wishing to harm our children. The FBI and the men and women are getting after that problem set more than ever because I've unleashed them to do so. And any insinuation that these tragic occurrences across the country are somehow singularly my fault or disgusting because that watershed goes
Mr.
down to the
Patel,
men
I'm
and
going to
women at the
reclaim my
FBI,
time. Mr.
and
Patel, I'm
they
gonna
are not
reclaim my time.
responsible
Mr.
for it.
Chairman,
I'm
I'd
happy
like
to
to
work
enter
with
a
you
unanimous
to
consent-
get them what they need.
Consent
Lady
request.
controls the time. Unanimous consent request. You'll state a request.
Thank you very much. Into the record, an article from Reuters titled FBI Scales Back Staffing, Tracking of Domestic Terrorism, Probes Sources Say.
The Domestic Terrorism Incident Database detail is the most specific operational fact in this clip, and it's the one that matters most beyond the political framing around it. Databases don't make headlines, they make cases. The National Domestic Terrorism Incident Database existed so that investigators across different field offices and different jurisdictions could see patterns. When someone in Florida and someone in Nevada are both stockpiling weapons with similar online fingerprints, the database connects those dots before either becomes an attack. Scrapping it doesn't just affect current cases, it degrades the FBI's ability to see what's coming. Patel's 300% increase in nihilistic violent extremist cases sounds like a counter-argument, but it actually raises a different question. If NVE cases are up 300%, what happened to the database and the experienced agents who would have been working those cases at full capacity? You can have more cases and fewer resources to handle them simultaneously. The Reuters article McBath enters FBI scales back staffing and tracking of domestic terrorism probe is the external corroboration of what she's alleging. It's not a political characterization. It's a documented news report citing law enforcement sources. What comes next is where the resource diversion becomes even more specific.
So, Mr. Patel, and it isn't just the domestic terrorism operations section. Under your watch, agents are fully diverting their attention to these anti-immigrant and city takeover operations, leaving our children vulnerable to dangerous networks of online predators, both domestic and international. You pulled more than 120 FBI agents from their normal duties to operate sobriety checks and conduct traffic stops, exposing the FBI's fleet of unmarked cars and thereby making it harder for the FBI to combat violent criminal gangs, foreign intelligence services, and drug traffickers in the process.
That's simply not true. If we were not able to do two things at one time, how would we be
Patel, I
seizing
reclaim
record
my
amounts of
time. I reclaim my
fentanyl?
time.
23,000
Chairman, I'd like to
violent
enter
felons have been
into the
arrested.
Time belongs to the gentlelady.
More than twice as many as
Consent
Time
last
belongs to
year.
the gentlelady from Georgia.
Thank you very much. And this request basically is, it is an article from Reuters, which quotes law enforcement officers familiar with agents who once covered child exploitation cases, but now focus on immigration child exclusive. Thousands of agents diverted to Trump immigration track down. Mr. Patel, in the short time I have left, your tenure as director of FBI has been somewhat problematic. Americans are left safe, definitely less safe under your watch. You have gutted the FBI's ability to keep safe from domestic terrorism. You have sent FBI agents to conduct traffic stops and round up hardworking immigrants who pose no danger to public safety, people even President Trump referred to as good, long-time workers. Your job is to protect and serve the American public.
Time to the
You have
gentlelady.
spent your time protecting heinous individuals and using the FBI to serve as a political circus. You at times have appeared unequipped,
Time
and
to
this
the
country
gentlelady has
deserves better, and
expired.
I yield.
The unmarked cars detail is the one that gets completely buried under the political exchange, and it's operationally significant in a way that transcends the immigration debate entirely. FBI unmarked vehicles exist specifically because the people the FBI investigates don't know they're being watched. Violent criminal gang leaders, foreign intelligence operatives, drug trafficking networks, their operational security depends on identifying surveillance. The moment 120 FBI vehicles are deployed for traffic stops in public view, those vehicles are no longer unknown to the criminal networks the FBI is tracking. That's an intelligence exposure that doesn't heal when the traffic stops end. McBath's Reuters citation is the third-party confirmation of what's being alleged. Law enforcement officers describing child exploitation agents now working immigration, not a partisan characterization. People who work there describing what changed. The closing, political circus, protecting heinous individuals, Americans left less safe, is the harshest direct indictment of Patel's tenure delivered in any House hearing in this series. And then she yields, which means Patel gets the floor. And what he says next is the most aggressive response he delivers to any congressperson across this entire series.
May I respond?
Sure can.
Simply put, what is it? Are we failing? If we're failing, how are we arresting 23,000 violent felons? Twice as many as this time last year. Are we failing? Because if we're failing, how are we seizing 1,500 kilograms of meth, 25% increase from last year? Are we failing? Because we captured 4 top 10 FBI most wanted from around the world in 7 months. That's more than the entirety of the last administration. Are we failing? Because we put 1,500 child predators in prison. Are we failing? Because we dismantled 300 human trafficking networks. Which is it? You don't like me, that's fine. But don't you dare disparage the men and women of the FBI that are producing record results in historic fashion to protect this country. They are kicking ass for America, and they're going to continue to do so.
Don't you dare is the most aggressive direct address to a congressperson in this entire hearing series. And unlike the Schiff meltdown, this one is structured around specific numbers rather than personal attacks. The statistics Patel delivers are real and documented across multiple hearings. 23,000 arrests, 4 top 10 most wanted, 1,500 child predators, 300 human trafficking networks. These aren't invented. They're operational outputs that reflect genuine work by genuine agents. But here's the structural problem with using them as a rebuttal to McBath's specific allegations. She wasn't disputing that arrests happened. She was disputing what was deprioritized to make those arrests possible. The domestic terrorism database that was scrapped doesn't appear in an arrest count. The child exploitation cases that went unpursued when those agents moved to immigration don't show up in the numbers Patel recites. The unmapped gang surveillance compromised by traffic stop appointments doesn't appear in a conviction total. Statistics measure what was done. They cannot measure what wasn't done because resources were redirected. That gap, the absence of capability, the cases that didn't get made, the threats that didn't get detected, is precisely what McBath was documenting. And Patel's statistical defense, however impressive numerically, doesn't close it. Don't you dare disparage the men and women of the FBI. He's right that the agents deserve credit for real results. The question McBath raised, and that remains open after this exchange, is whether those results came at the cost of capabilities that won't show up in any statistic until something goes wrong. Subscribe, because this series tracks both the numbers and what they don't count.